I think what needs to be said and has been said about the disturbing parts of it, like the praising of terrorists, the finding solidarity with Hamas, praising Hamas overtly, and all the anti-Semitism, even though they're denying it, the anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism disguised as anti-Zionism. The guys who say, we have Zionists in our camp. We have Zionists in our camp, acting like zombie NPC craziness. Weird. So everybody's condemning that rightfully. And I just, from a gut instinct perspective, I'm seeing this as like such an obvious display of students who are bored and soft and haven't had any real adversity and crave it so bad that they want to manufacture a drama and fetishize. I can't say that word right. Fetish, and have a fetish for.
You said it right.
Fetishize?
Fetishize.
Yeah. And have a fetish for struggle. And because it seems their lives are so easy without any sort of resistance, without any sort of resistance is a buzzword, but without any sort of adversity. They're at Columbia. We're not looking at rebels in a third world country going up against an oppressive regime of any kind. So they're manufacturing an environment that is like cosplaying, as it's been described online, as oppressed peoples rising up. They're describing buildings that they're storming into as liberated. And it's just so obviously like beautiful buildings that they got into to institutions of higher learning that are reserved for the upper middle class and students who've had a lot of privilege and not a lot of adversity. It seems very obvious to me. And they crave it so much that they are just cosplaying this whole thing out and it becomes socially contagious to like want to go and be part of some revolution. And it's all shrouded in profound ignorance about what the actual cause is. They just want to be part of something meaningful in their college years. And so they're really, and I don't know what's worse, people who actually ideologically really feel committed to something grotesque, or people who are just have no idea why they're there and are doing it out of ignorance just to kind of go along with it. And maybe it doesn't matter because the sheepishness of one constituency and the ideological evil of another come together to form something very frightening and scary. But at the end of the day, no one's talking about just how not a lot of focus is being put on the fact that a lot of these students are motivated by just wanting to be a part of something meaningful.
Right. I imagine if you are 20 years old now, you were born in 2004, you were 10 years old in 2014, you were 15 years old in 2019, right? So like the idea of going to a party to meet people just because you want to meet them or hook up or whatever it is probably pretty terrifying. So I have a theory that like it's hard to socialize if you're that age right now around anything other than like a cause. There has to be like a reason. There has to be like a goal. There has to be some sort of pretense for like why are we all hanging out? Why are we all having a sleepover? Basically, like, you know what I mean?
But even though all the girls have armpit hair and smell like patchouli. That's the other thing.
And I can't see their faces.
Profoundly unhot. I mean, we're looking at some of the most unattractive people I've ever seen. So I don't know, but I hear you.
Is it a hippie thing? I don't know if I've seen so many like images of it.
Everybody's a bit doughy.
But anyway, but like the idea that like we have to get together to be social activists, otherwise it's like I don't know how to do it. So this is a great way to do it right now.
Yeah. Also, the idea of like hanging out under a cause that would deem you evil, like if you're doing a risk assessment at that age, like might as well join the cause that seems like the virtuous one. If everybody here, including the faculty, who I still consider the adults in the room, are supporting it. I don't want to take the risk if I'm fully uninformed of being pro-Israel, lest I be completely socially cast out. And it's won that narrative. So it seems like, why don't I just go along with one that everybody's chanting about?
Well, the odd thing is there is no, the disturbing thing to me is there is no counter protest of people who are not Jews on the other side of it. It's not like, well, which one should I join? The one with like all the people I like hanging out with and are diverse, or should I just go to like Hillel? Like the people like counter protesting it are just Orthodox Jews. It's not like this big group of black students and students of color and everyone has come together and moderate Muslims have all come together to be like, no, this is not our voice. We do not agree with this. Let's stand outside and show our voices. It's like me and you and like people from the Upper West Side.
But the pro-Palestinian side doesn't seem all that fun and like chill. Seems rather angsty.
Yeah, but it probably is fun until you get like suspended and you have to go back to Iraq.
I don't know. Maybe, but if you just look around, maybe there's some sort of like high and like there's just a sort of feeling of euphoria you get from everybody in this sort of being part of some cause that's deemed worthy and holy. But if you look at it, there's so much anger and bitterness and resentment and ungratefulness. So, like, is that an energy you really want to be around? Maybe at that age, I don't know.
So to your point about looking for that, what do you call it? Not resistance. You used another word.
Adversity.
Struggle? Yeah. That maybe explains a little bit why it's from what I've seen a lot less pro-Palestinian and a lot more anti-Zionist. Because they're looking for adversary. They need to be anti something, not pro something. So they call it pro-Palestinian, obviously, but that's not really the energy there. It's anti.
It's Occupy Wall Street Part 3. It's like a new season, new story, same characters.
Yeah. What do you think of the argument of it? At the end of the day, it is free speech. At the end of the day, they do have a right. The media might be blowing out the more violent, radical elements out of proportion, but like it's possible. I haven't seen it, but it's possible. It is mostly peaceful. It is mostly pro-Palestinian. They do have a right to be there, etc.
No, I think that you have a right to protest and demonstrate, and it doesn't take much of a minority, if it is, to completely disrupt and call off the whole thing. The second you storm into buildings, take people hostage, break down glass, make threats, violent threats, that's beyond the right.
But we were calling to get rid of it before they occupied that building.
What do you mean? You could counter protest it, but they were occupying all. I mean, when they set up.
I mean, I feel like the Jewish community was calling on the president of Colombia to dismantle the encampment for sure
before they stormed
the building. It wasn't just because they stormed it.
Because within the encampment, they weren't just saying, expressing solidarity with the suffering of Gazans. They were preventing Jewish students from crossing. It's in public spaces. Anyone who was deemed a Zionist, we have a Zionist in our camp. And they were forming these human chains to like get people out. You can't restrict freedom of movement. You can't make threats to people. And there's a debate to be had on what these slogans and chants mean. Are they incitements to violence? Yeah. Like, intifada revolution. Intifada, it's not struggle, it's violence. I mean, the only examples of intifadas in Israel are violent ones. And I don't need to give you the press talking points. But the point is, demonstrating in the purest sense is allowed. In the context of that, if you're, and I guess there's a fine line between what's disruptive versus what's threatening. But
I want to hear the press talking points because I'm not as involved in it as you are. But like how do you articulate why a Jewish student feels quite so threatened? Because for everyone else, it seems, they're chanting these slogans. Just because you're anti-Zionist doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. Mm-hmm. Like they want a ceasefire. Like relax. Jeremy Bloom or whatever, like they're not actually trying to kill you. Like how do you articulate?
Right. They're not actually trying to kill you, but if you display anything remotely supportive of a different point of view or a pro-Israel point of view, you will be restricted from your movement. You will be threatened. You will be intimidated and harassed. If you're a college professor who wants to speak out and counter protest and exercise your right to free speech, you will be deemed an agitator, and your card, an access card of Professor ID, will be restricted and stripped, which is what happened to him. He can't get in now. This is before the building. I use that as the final straw that broke the camel's back when they stormed the building. But and a friend of mine, Tyler Fisher, said, "Wow, this encampment does a great impression of January 6th." But like,
I mean, that's an interesting link that you don't hear. I'm not hearing enough.
But my point is, I'm just saying these people aren't just out there with signs, expressing a point of view. Yeah. There's a much more proactive nefarious element to it. When you're when they shout out and a mob starts to chant, "We have Zionists in our camp," and they go like this and they form shields.
Yeah.
When they hold signs that say Al Qassam, these are your next targets. Did you see that one?
Yeah. No. So like, I mean, so we're all cherry.
That's
Listen,
kill these demonstrators.
I'm with you, but also the playing devil's advocates. We're all being shown. We're in that algorithm, so we're being shown all those videos. We've all seen the same exact videos, which leads me to believe that like there is an appetite for that side of the story. I haven't really looked so far into the other side of the story.
Yes.
Which I've come across on like headlines from Breaking Points and other like more left-wing things I've seen. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously there is that anti-Semitic element to it.
And at the crux of it, they're all calling for what's the underlying message of a protest like this? They are trying to call for the destruction and dismantling of Israel and all the Jews in it. So you can give the lip service all you want that there's Jews in our encampment and there's people who support us. Well, then you have a bunch of Jews in your encampment that are calling for the destruction of Israel and all the Jews in it effectively. I don't care if they know what it means. That, yes, okay, I get it. Like maybe some of them are ill-informed and some of them aren't. But if you have a pro-Al-Qaeda protest on campus that wishes to destroy the United States, you might have to take a look at the free speech issue and see where there's incitement to violence, because that's what Hamas is, a terrorist organization, and they are not condemning them; they are supporting them in a lot of in these instances. And there's faculty and professors who are saying Islamic Jihad and Hamas. I know that's the thing I saw in my algorithm, but if that's there and that's happening, and you're a Jewish student on campus or a pro-Israel student on campus, you don't feel comfortable to be an equally represented counter voice.
So
and they're very comfortable using violence. They're very comfortable with violence. Violent revolution is what they seem thirsty for and seem that it's virtuous to do, to start breaking windows and smashing heads.
Right. Yeah. It seemed like an obvious endpoint for that it was going to end up with a broken window.
And I don't say from the
worst night of broken glass for Jews in a very long time.
And I don't say go ahead.
My sister says something really interesting. She went to Barnard. And until a few weeks ago, she was very adamant that she went to Columbia, but now she's like, no, I went to Barnard. But she was saying, like, in her day, she was in college during the Second Intifada, and there was always SJP protests and rallies.
Yes,
and it was disturbing and uncomfortable, but that's all it was. It was just disturbing and uncomfortable, and forced her to think a little bit about why her positions are what they are and strengthen them. And she's like, what's going on now is just wholly different. It's like a completely different thing.
I remember seeing it too. You have the right to point that idea.
Of course. And like, I think maybe a point that's less, I think should be more in the forefront of Jews going like, no, please protest. Like, please express what you think about this war. Just do it in a proper way.
Civilly.
Mostly what we see is like, call the NYPD, arrest them. I'll be like, no, just do it, but differently. Differently.
I hear you. I think what we're seeing is pretty much wholly uncivil in a lot of ways.
Completely.
And therefore they're saying, bring in the law enforcement, do not, and I get it. A lot of people go too far. And I think that can bring us to the next subject, which is that there is a bill that just passed the House, I think, regarding codifying anti-Semitism in a form.